Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Magic the Gathering, Speculation, Economics, and Finance. I'm your host, Birdman. I know I haven't been around lately for the one or two or three or four, whatever, number of you people that actually pay attention to the stuff I put on the internet. But anyway, I've been really busy, holidays, lots going on. But I have a few random updates for everybody. I'm just doing an audio recording today. But I think I can make everything clear. Also, I kind of like just doing this audio recording style, so hopefully one or two of y'all can do gaming and just put me on in the background, and you don't have to worry about actually missing out on anything, or you can work out or drive down the road and just kind of listen to me on the go. So here's a few things that I want to talk about, and if you want to actually check out some of the stuff I'm talking about, I will put links in the show notes so you can actually follow up with this stuff. But anyway, I'm just going to do a quick rundown on a few things. First of all, I'm going to talk about the news first, and then I'm going to get in a little bit later into a few things about speaking broadly about finance, and we'll maybe talk a little bit about pauper, and then maybe talk a little bit about my plans going forward for the channel here. So let's start out with some news. There's been a couple of updates from Channel Fireball, and I've been kind of amazed at how obscure this stuff is, how difficult it is to actually go out and find this information. Unless, of course, you're on Reddit, where you can find anything, but you have to wonder if it's actually true. At any rate, I'm just gonna read this quote as far as an update to the floor policy of Channel Fireball at GP events. Everyone is welcome to trade cards with the goal of building decks or collecting their favorite cards. Trading cards for the primary purpose of gaining value or earning a profit is restricted to those who have purchased a vendor booth for the event. Buying and selling cards with anyone other than official vendors is strictly prohibited. The enforcement of all event policies is at the sole discretion of the CFB event staff. End quote. So basically, they don't want people on the floor buying and selling cards, which is not wholly unusual. There's a number of gaming stores. Your local LGS might have this rule. What is a little interesting, though, is they go a little bit further and they say, this is a quote, a subset of the larger quote I just did, and I quote, trading cards for the primary purpose of gaining value or earning a profit is restricted to those who have purchased a vendor booth. So what they're literally saying here is the only kind of trading you can do at a GP event is cardsphere deck, which gets really interesting because within this they do start out by saying everyone's welcome to trade cards with the goals of building decks or collecting their favorite cards, but then on the other side you can't really trade to gain value or earn a profit, which is a little bit weird. I mean, if they had just said you can't sell cards or buy cards for cash, well, that's straightforward. But it sounds like they wanted a little bit broader reach because, there might have been some people who thought, I don't want to actually have to buy a vendor booth, but I'm going to take, the largest amount of stuff I can take that I can sneak in without getting caught, because they already have other areas in their policies where they say, you can't wheel in carts and carts and carts of binders and set them up on a table somewhere. They're not going to go for that. So, you might have some smaller shop guys who bring maybe you can get away with 5, 6 binders or something like that. And, if CFB finds out, hey, that those aren't players, that's just a shop that was too cheap to buy a vendor booth from us, they're going to kick you out. And that's all fairly straightforward. But what's kind of interesting here is, if you take this information and this policy literally, it means you can only trade for cards that are where you're, and I quote, collecting their favorite cards, or to alter the quote to make sense in a sentence by itself. You can only trade for cards where you're collecting your favorite cards, or with the goal of building a deck. Now, this isn't necessarily a big deal in practice, because if CFB knows what's good for them, they're not going to be around harassing the low-level singular players. But, just for the sake of saying that rules should be formulated properly, clearly, and accurately, and not have, weird, ambiguities about them. The thing that's a little strange here is, basically Channel Fireball, could say, look, looks like you're trading for 20 cards right now. are you even playing any events here? You don't even have any decks? Well, they're not going in your decks. And, we don't believe you have 20 different favorite cards. I mean, most players just have a few favorite cards. So we're pretty sure that this is actually just trading cards for the primary purpose of, getting value, right? Like, and then they look at the trade that's laying on the table and like, one person's, trading off like, $20 worth of cards, and the other person's getting $40 worth of cards. And like, wow, it really looks like you are trading for value. Now, some people might say, hey, that's a good thing. Maybe CFP could use this policy to, intervene if someone's about to get really ripped off in a trade or something like that. Again, I doubt they would. But the thing that I really think is likely to happen is that people will be engaged in trading. And you don't know most of the people that you're trading with. I mean, you're already a little bit, careful. Like, hey, is this person going to try to rip me off? Are they going to try to scam me? So you're on guard. And, it's not totally crazy that two people will go into a trade and not really like each other because maybe somebody makes a lowball offer or something like that. Well, the way these roles work, I mean, it's not crazy that, one person could allege like, oh, you know what? You're not even trying to build a deck or collect cards. You're just a trade shark. And maybe that's true. Maybe it's not true. But then they go get some of the floor personnel from Channel Fireball and try to get you kicked out of the event because, I don't know if the floor personnel are going to actually go for that. But, I mean, it's just a kind of a weird situation. The other thing is, once people realize that, like if Channel Fireball actually did like have somebody who was generally just being a dick and they didn't care for him, but he wasn't being like quite bad enough to kick out. But then he did something like this and they thought, well, technically this is grounds to kick him out, So they throw him out. Maybe that makes news. People realize, whoa, I could be kicked out if I'm trading for cards that I'm not going to put in a deck and aren't really actually my favorite cards. If I'm just trading for a lot of broad cards that I think are valuable and good and better than the junk I had in my trade binder, I could actually be, kicked out of the Grand Prix event for that, off the grounds, even if I'm not playing in a tournament. And it's kind of weird. So then you could have this scenario where people get together to trade and they just kind of basically lie to each other. Where one person's like, oh, that's a card I really need for my commander deck. I didn't bring it with me, but look at that. That's another one. And of course, these two cards that they're looking at obviously don't go in the same commander deck. So now we got to carry the lie a little bit further. Well, I've got a lot of commander decks. I've got like 20 commander decks, and I need to trade for all these cards. And the other person's like, oh, I also have like 20 commander decks, so I need to trade for a lot of cards too. And, I mean, how are you really going to know if someone does or doesn't have 20 commander decks at home? Most people don't. But I think this just creates, maybe CFB will be fairly hands-off. Maybe they just want really broad language here so that, they have broad latitude to kick out vendors and stuff. But I just wonder, like, is this something that's going to be just a super greedy money grab, or what they're really doing is they don't only want to stop people from buying and selling cards, but they also want to dip in and make sure that your trading is as restricted as possible, and make people a little paranoid about whether they even can properly trade. So maybe they'll buy a little bit more from, Channel Fireball and the vendors and, that kind of thing. So I don't know exactly what is up with this policy. If it had just said you can't buy or sell cards from anyone except for official vendors, you know what? That's straightforward. That's clean. It accomplishes the goal. But this extra language of, everyone is welcome to trade for cards with the goal of building decks or collecting their favorite cards. And then they say trading cards for the primary purpose of gaining value or earning a profit is restricted to those who have purchased a vendor booth for the event. That language, they might be intending it for one thing, but it could easily be turned into something else. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing that I want to mention about this is super hush-hush. I mean, they have not done a very good job of broadly publishing and explaining this to people. So let's imagine you're someone who's not a store, you're not a vendor, but you like to bring along an extra $1,000, and maybe you have to go through some hassle and difficulties to get all that cash together. It's not just to, go to the bank, pull out $1,000, no problem. Maybe you got to jump through some hoops. You got to go to your landlord, like, look, my rent's going to be a little bit late. I promise I will pay you in one more week. I just really need to I keep this cash right now for something else and blah blah blah. So you're jumping through all these hoops, maybe incurring bad will with people because you know how valuable it is to have cash on hand towards the end of a Grand Prix. And you get there with your money and you find out you can't buy anything. And, Channel Fireball really did not do a very good job of putting this on their main website in bold print. Maybe have a pro like LSV talk about it a little bit, or somebody put an article that stays kind of on the side somewhere where you can see it. I think GP announcements like this should be more out there so that people don't get ambushed when they show up. The second thing that is interesting is a lot of different places like Tolarian Academy and on Twitter and on Reddit, people have been talking about how Pauper is going to be a side event at some Grand Prix, which is true. And so at the upcoming Grand Prix, let me check real quick to see what the date was on that. Grand Prix Santa Clara. This looks like January 5th through the 7th. So I guess it's actually starting today. There's going to be a Pauper side event on Sunday. So here in just a couple days, that's going to happen. So Channel Fireball makes this announcement like on Twitter, and they don't post it in a really visible, clear place on their website. Now, other places have been promoting it, and this just feels so typically like how things work in the Magic world. Like Wizards of the Coast makes an announcement, and then they like hide it, and you can't find the darn thing. And, trying to navigate around on the Wizard site is really painful. And then there's this information that's important, but, only a handful of people figure it out, and they're telling other people, and then maybe you're one of those people that's like, hey, I'd kind of like to read the original primary source of this information for myself in case there's any nuances or wrinkles that maybe the person that conveyed the information to me may have overlooked. And you can't do it because you can't find the darn thing because Wizards' website is terrible. Well, now Channel Fireball is kind of following in that path of not having a clean, clear, easily obvious, accessible place on their website to convey important information about GPs. And when you're Channel Fireball and you're basically running all the GPs, I'm disappointed because I had hopes that Channel Fireball would do a better job of making information more easily publicly accessible. And this is I really think it's cool that Pauper is going to be an event on Sunday, and I'm glad for the people like Tolarian Academy and the professor that have promoted it and other people that are promoting it. But it's just very disappointing that the Channel Fireball didn't do a better job of actually promoting it, somewhere on their website in a prominent place. Another little random tidbit I want to talk about. This isn't really news, but Pucatrade's been going downhill fast. It's my opinion, but it's a pretty common opinion. If you just go to Reddit and look at any Pucatrade stuff on Reddit, it's a dumpster fire. It is a train wreck. So anyway, I was looking at some kind of alternative options. I've been using Magic Online Trading League, but it's pretty slow, and because it's not really run by anybody, there's no real dispute resolution process for anything. I don't want to move anything really expensive on there. I just move lower stuff, and for that it's fine. I've done probably around a dozen transactions and haven't been scammed yet, so that's pretty good for just doing $5 to $30 trades. But I'm now looking at signing up on cardsphere. I'm not with my 5 viewers, I'm not getting sponsored or paid by anybody, so I don't got to worry about that. So it's not like I'm being influenced to tell you hey, cardsphere is cool when it's a piece of trash because somebody's giving me some kind of a monetary benefit. No, I just think cardsphere looks pretty awesome. I was checking it out and kind of looking at it, and I wasn't really sure. And what actually tipped the scales for me was Rogue Deck Builder. That's a YouTube channel. Check it out, Rogue Deck Builder. Guy is super cool guy. I don't know him. I've never talked to him. I've just watched his videos. He doesn't know I exist. But I would highly recommend. He's kind of a little hidden gem out there. He talks about finance stuff. He talks about pauper stuff. He does some other random stuff too that I'm not as interested in, but some of y'all might dig. Does some brewing and some deck stuff. So anyway, the point is, Rogue Deck Builder says cardsphere is pretty sweet. He said he's been doing stuff on there and been really enjoying it a lot. I think it's great. The way it basically works is you sign up to Rogue Deck Builder and you put all the cards that you want into their database and all the cards that you want to sell. And if people want to buy your cards, they'll actually just ship you an offer because you kind of post your prices. There's not really any haggling or negotiating. You just post your prices, and if someone likes your prices, you'll get a notification that, hey, this person's going to ship these cards to you at your prices if you're good with that. And then you go, heck yeah, sounds good. And you click OK, and then the cards come in the mail, and money comes out of your balance because it uses real money. You put, maybe you put $100 in your account or whatever, and cardsphere charges you a 1% fee for the value of the transaction per card involved. So the way this works is, if you had 10 cards that you are shipping to somebody, and they're worth $1 each, so $10. That means that cardsphere is going to get 10 cents out of that, which is, that's basically nothing. It's not really a big deal. And then you'll get, the $9.90. Whoever is actually supposed to get the money, the seller will get the $9.90 will end up in their account, and then they can use that money to turn around and buy other cards. So it's basically trading cards for cards, but you need some money to start with. I haven't actually gotten started in the process yet. It looks like you can basically start with no money and just sell cards and build a reserve of money on there that way, and then turn around and buy cards with that money. And then they're taking the little 1% cut out of everything, which is really, really minute, in my opinion. And then if you ever want to cash out, if you have money left in your account and you just want to pull it out, they do take 10%. But it's really not that bad, because if you were going to sell cards on TCG Player, eBay, Amazon, you would lose at least that percentage of the sales anyway. So it's really not bad at all, especially if you're not really looking to sell cards. If you really just want to trade, then as long as you're always just taking your balance and rolling it into more cards, all you're ever going to have to worry about is a 1% value loss on the trade, which again is just basically nothing. It's not nothing, but if you're a finance person, every little bit counts. But compared to other alternatives, it's really, really cheap for the service. I read something somewhere that says maybe you have to deposit $20 in your account to sign up, but I created an account for free. So I don't know if maybe they've kind of evolved since I read that post. So at some point I'll probably just try to sell some cards without having put any money in my account. I probably will put some money into my account at some point, but mostly I just kind of want to see how this thing works. I want to see if you can actually get started and get going basically for free, because I could see that having a lot of appeal to players that basically have plenty of time but not a lot of money. So anyway, I'll test that out and maybe mention something later about that. Also, Rogue Deck Builder likes to talk about cardsphere, and his videos are very good about it. So you should definitely go check that out. Another thing I wanted to mention briefly, I guess I should have put this at the beginning in the preface in case you're tired of hearing about it. But unless you've been living under a rock, there were a couple of bannings that went down for Jeremy, who runs Unsleeved Media / MTG headquarters / whatever. And there was also a banning of Travis Wu. I think it's unfortunate for everybody. This all kind of evolved out of Jeremy saying mean things about cosplayer Ms. Sprankle, who also, unfortunately for the community, has declined to continue doing cosplay stuff, at least for the time being. And Travis Wu was involved in a face group that was saying really mean and sexist things in a private face group. Really offensive stuff. So it's really unfortunate. It's unfortunate that people are mean to each other. I wish we lived in a better world where that didn't happen. On the Jeremy / MTG headquarters thing, I think it's really interesting, like the back and forths. I don't really have anything to say on that people haven't already said, so I just let that be. I'm not really sure what the ultimate answer really is there. The thing about the Wu ban, which I thought was really interesting, was the fact that he's a pro player who's been banned from participating in the Pro Tour. So Wizards is effectively taking away somebody's ability to pursue their livelihood. And I just was kind of amazed that they gave him a one year ban. for some stuff in a private Facebook group that leaked out that was really offensive and unsavory. And I think that Wu was definitely in the wrong for what he did, but it seems like a really stiff punishment. And a lot of people who talk about it in terms of what he did being okay, or what he did being not okay. And I don't really think that's the issue. I think the issue is the punishment seems quite severe. And here's the reason. I think when you evaluate these things, you have to take a step back and say, is this part of the game? Because the further Wizards gets out into regulating people's lives privately, I mean, it gets pretty sketchy pretty fast. And when you look at the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, soccer, hockey, there's some off the field, off the court stuff that they're going to regulate. But it's basically got to get to the point where criminal charges have been filed or there's an active criminal investigation. In other words, there's been a violation of the laws of the land. Generally just being a dick, well, that's usually handled in-house, not by the league in any of the leagues. It's usually handled by the team office, handing out some kind of, smackdowns. So, in other words, I think it would have been more than appropriate for some in-house punishments to come down on Wu. Say, I think he lost, I forget, he was a part of some team that dropped him from the team. I think it's fine for him to lose sponsorships, lose his team, lose some money, for people to take individual action against him. But when you take a giant corporation and that comes against him, that seems rough. And I could see if they dropped him from one Pro Tour and said, look, we're going to send a message. We're going to send a strong message. You don't get to participate in this upcoming Pro Tour. And I think that would have been a strong enough message to really get his attention. So kicking him for the whole year just seems very cruel and over the top. Especially the worst part of all of this is when you punish people more for conduct outside of your game or your sport than the punishments you give for what they do inside of the game or sport. That feels a little bit nonsensical, and it's basically just trying to be, a populist PR move. Because the truth is, when you're running a game or a sports league, the thing that you should really take care of the most is people that are cheating, people that are trying to defraud people and hurt people inside the scope and the sphere of the game as it's unfolding. So for the NFL, that's, on the field, trying to get an advantage through cheating or intentionally injuring other players in ways that are not legal. And the same thing for any other sport like that. For Magic, really clamping down hard on cheating at GPs and ban someone for life if you catch them cheating. Be hardcore on that. And if you ban people for life every time you catch them cheating, and it's clear-cut cheating, or at least you can, you're 95% sure this is cheating, just ban them for life every time. And then when you smack somebody like Wu for a year, that adds up and makes sense. It's like, okay, that's hard, but it's fair. But when you're, basically doling out these little slappies on the wrists for cheaters, for people who are actually violating, the inner core context of what Wizards of the Coast is actually running, and they give them, a little slap on the wrist, it makes it seem a little more strange and just weird when they basically, really drop the hammer on somebody for conduct that was occurring in private, well outside of any event or Magic game. Now, admittedly, the Facebook group he was in did involve Magic players associating together. But just because Magic players are associating together in private, I think it's a very broad reach for a corporation to say that, because you play our game, because you're involved in our sport, we now have the right to regulate your private behavior. Now, don't misunderstand me. I do not agree or approve or condone of what Wu did. I have to say that again emphatically. This has to do with corporations and how powerful they are, and them always grasping and trying to get more power and more influence and more ability to influence people's private lives. And that's something I'm not really comfortable with. So I'll leave it at that on that particular topic. The next thing I wanted to kind of briefly move along to is how, with Pauper becoming a GP side event. This is going to be a really interesting time because now there's going to be an opportunity for basically pauper to become a real format, which is really interesting. So, there could be some investment opportunities for anybody out there who wants to invest in paper pauper cards, but it's really tough because those are all prime candidates. Anytime a common gets up to $5, pretty much you can expect it's going to get reprinted in some kind of master set or something like that. So it's still pretty sketchy. But if you just want to get in on it and have a few pauper decks before the prices go up, now's probably the time to go ahead and jump in on most of that action. The other thing is, this is just a personal thing, I hope somebody goes in and does Frontier Pauper as a format. Basically, the pauper format with all the newer cards. The reason is, all the newer cards are cheaper. A lot of pauper decks in paper and online can cost you like $50. But Frontier Pauper, we're talking about $10 decks. And if pauper is supposed to be an introductory format to kind of help new players check out, or people that are on a budget play constructed, Frontier Pauper would be cool. It would also help promote Frontier as a concept, which would be good for the Frontier format. And I think it would just be kind of a win-win-win all around. Also, there's some real confusion about keeping up with what exactly the Magic Online pauper format is when you're playing in paper. I've played a lot of Magic Online, so I'm not confused at all. I get it. But people who have never played Magic Online sit down to play pauper, and they're trying to understand what's legal and what's not legal when they're going on the Magic Online pauper format, which has some things at common that are not common in paper, and some things that are not common online that are common in paper, and then there's the ban list on top of all that. Well, if you just have Frontier Pauper, you just go, hey, it's all the new cards at common besides Treasure Cruise, which is banned because it's broken. So you got one banned card, and it's all the new cards. It's simple, it's easy, it's cheap, does the job. Also promotes Frontier. So I think that would be cool if that ever took off at some local game shops hosting some Frontier Pauper tournaments. And one last thing. At least in the early days, it would be awesome for brewers. There's no deck lists out there. You'd have to man up and build a deck old school, which I know, perhaps is a bit overrated to some of us, but there are some people that's what they live for. So that'd be kind of another cool dynamic of it. So that one or two of you out there listening, just something to think about. Talk to your local store owner, put it out there, talk to some friends, whatever. Give it a go, see what it's like. It would also be a great way to allow new players to check out the game that don't want to drop $200 just to, try it out for a while. They could drop like $10 and try it out for a while. And then kind of go from there if they like it. So that covers most of the things I want to talk about. The last thing I want to talk about is kind of more broadly, generally, Magic the Gathering Online. So we still have this new digital product, the Magic Arena that's going to be coming. And Wizards has been saying that's going to be their focus for Standard, and they've kind of been making it sound like Magic the Gathering Online is going to be for Modern, Vintage, Legacy, that kind of, and I guess Pauper, that kind of stuff. This makes me, I don't know, I have a lot of mixed feelings on this. One of the reasons I haven't been posting a lot lately is while I do feel like most likely MTGO is not going anywhere, and it could actually grow and even benefit if a lot of new players try out Arena that would never play MTGO, and they sort of graduate into MTGO as sort of the next tier of play. Then MTGO cards, instead of going down in price, a lot of people kind of think, whoa, what if Standard cards on Magic the Gathering Online actually go down in price? It's very possible. But if there was a brand new influx of players, it's so much harder to tell how that all pans out. There's more demand for the cards, but then, hey, maybe there's a lot more drafters online too. So, maybe there's more supply. I think what a lot of people are nervous about is that Magic Arena just basically is so good that it completely replaces Magic the Gathering Online, and Magic Online becomes a ghost town. Now, truthfully, I'm optimistic, but the problem I have is Wizards has a horrible track record of ever doing anything right. I mean, there's so many things they've screwed up, especially when it comes to Magic the Gathering Online. There's a lot of people that don't play Magic the Gathering Online because of how poorly it's been run. I have one personal friend who quit playing just because he couldn't handle the interface at certain stages of its deployment. This was years ago, and the interface has had some very painful stages of deployment. And the other thing is, they have crashes and problems all the time for years, trying to handle basically a picture and text-based game, whereas, the World of Warcraft has like, millions of concurrent players in a full digital world. I mean, it's just sad and embarrassing. I realize Blizzard had a lot more money they were putting into it, but still, it's just sad that WotC has had such a hard time keeping a text and picture game from crashing. So, anyway, the point is, Magic Online's been run poorly for forever, and so there's two things that kind of add a fuzziness to the calculus. There would be a number of easy professional ways for Arena to launch and it not to hurt Magic the Gathering Online and even to help it. But that might require a company that's actually competent. So, if this is poorly done, it could end up being the case that Magic Online does get completely cannibalized, and that's going to be very, very dangerous for people who are holding a lot of assets there. I think I've got, I don't know, I've got a couple thousand in tickets in my account, maybe another 1,000 in cards. So, at the moment I have drawn down the amount that I have on my account, and I'll probably draw it down even further as Arena gets closer. And, under those circumstances, I don't feel comfortable really making speculative, predictions on anything or encouraging people. I think on the specs that I've actually put on my channel, the vast majority of them have been really good. Some of them were only really good for a short time frame, but I've had very few. I don't know if I've actually recommended anything that's just totally crashed and burned. I'm sure some of the stuff I may have said, like, hey, pick up some 10-cent cards and just hold them. Yeah, maybe those went to 2 cents or whatever. But as far as like, hey, buying a card for $1 and now it's 30 cents. I don't think I've recommended anything like that. Most of the cards I recommended have been winners. Some took a lot longer than others. There've been one or two that just kind of flatlined, so you would have lost money on the transaction fees. But I think anyone who basically just followed, bought 10 copies of every one of my recommendations and then liquidated them once they, were able to make a ticket or two, basically would have done very well for themselves. So, I'm not looking to promote anybody or anything. This is never going to be a big channel. The only reason I even made this channel is because there's just not a lot of Magic Online finance content. I got to looking for some, and there's just so little. I thought, well, I'll throw some random crap out there because I wish there was more. Maybe somebody will see my stuff and go, wow, I could do a lot better than that, and then I can enjoy their content. So I just kind of do this randomly on the side, and I'm not going to recommend stuff unless I'm really confident because I don't want anybody to lose any money because of me. So while I will still be investing, I will still be making moves. I don't know how much of that I'll be putting up here because until MTG Arena comes out, there's like, I think it's more likely than not that it won't destroy everything, but there's a sizable enough chance that it could, that it's really significant risk. And I don't know. I just don't have any confidence in Wizards. Another funny scenario is that Magic Arena comes out, crashes and burns, and MTGO ends up at about the same place because, everybody just has to go back there again. Maybe some people are bitter and they quit, and maybe some new people come in because they heard about Arena and it's gone, so now they go over to MTGO and it's like net neutral. Doesn't really hurt anything. Doesn't really help anything. That wouldn't surprise me either. But there's just so much uncertainty, and Wizards is so, just ambiguous about everything that they do. And I have no trust. I have zero trust with Wizards. So there's just a lot of factors that lead me to feel very cautious about the market. To the extent that I would give financial advice for Magic Online, it would be this. Liquidate any valuable modern cards that you have that you're not currently just keeping and playing for fun. If you're just playing for fun, well, don't worry about all this. But if you've got a bunch of modern cards, I think now that standard cards, maybe wait a little bit. After Rivals comes out and the market stabilizes, and maybe people come back because they get interested in standard for a little bit, and there's a little more juice going on. Sometime over the next few months when prices seem okay, I would be liquidating a lot of valuable stuff because, there's going to be another reprint wave with Masters 25 and with the treasure chest constantly basically bleeding value out of people's collections. That's bad enough. But then when you add the uncertainty of Arena to it all, that's more than I would really want to handle. So, if it's me, I'm thinking I'm selling out all the valuable stuff. And, maybe pick up some dirt cheap stuff because, I don't know. If you buy cards that are between, a penny to, a quarter, how much do you really have to lose anyway? Unless they completely shut down the system, if one or two of those ever get to $1, which isn't asking much, you've got some real upside there. So, basically stuff that's not worth anything doesn't have much to lose. It's only up from there. You don't want to just go out and buy every trash card around, but, do your time, research, really think about what kind of cards are cheap now that might bounce up in the future, in standard and modern primarily, and then maybe a little bit in pauper too, as it's going to maybe pick up some juice, and it's an eternal format that sounds like will be around even with the arena coming out. So anyway, that's basically all I got for today. I don't know, guys. It's kind of a weird, uncertain time. The arena thing, I don't know. I've just been thinking about it. It's kind of one of those things where I think there's this 80% chance arena's not really going to hurt Magic the Gathering Online. And at first glance, that seems like a high confidence level, and it is. But the problem I have is a 20% chance of everything going to crap. That's an absurdly high chance if you really think about it. I mean, that's a lot of risk. And so that's really more risk than I can feel comfortable operating in right now. I'm actually fairly conservative in how I do this stuff. I'll probably actually just tinker with physical cards for a while, try out cardsphere, play pauper, do some nickel and dime. I mean, I may put in 50 tickets, but it's going to be all in, nickel and dime stuff. I'll probably try to maybe I'll redeem some sets or something if any sets get down to cheap price points. Like if Ixalan gets cheap, maybe I'll just redeem some sets and sell them on eBay or whatever. And so I'll still be doing Magic shenanigans, but as far as actually really rolling portfolios, I'm pretty happy because I actually think I got like a new portfolio. I got like $300 or $400 in, but I'm gonna probably kind of put the brakes on there. And I've already liquidated a lot of my holdings. I'll keep going, and I'm happy because on my investment waves, when I add them all up, I'm net positive by a good margin on all of them, and I only had one where I was negative, and it wasn't bad compared to the profits I made on everything else. So I'm doing pretty good here personally. I hope you guys are as well. If y'all are going to go full force forward in the face of arena, I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea, but just keep that risk in mind, and have a great year, guys. I have no idea what this year is going to hold. It could be anything. This could be the birth of pauper going big, or it could be the death knell of pauper, in a sense that if it doesn't take off now, it may not ever, because whenever people try again in the future, they may say, oh no, we tried that and it didn't work. So I mean, the pressure is kind of on for pauper to actually get some support and do something. So that's going to be interesting. How Wizards manages the product this year, what's going to happen to the prices on unstable lands with I've heard, Alpha Investments, Rudy over there, saying there's going to be another print run. The card should land to market in February. Watching how Wizards handles print runs on other sets, particularly Masters sets, kind of iconic Masters being produced so heavily and distributed so heavily. So how Wizards going full ham production on these master sets is going to impact people's collections and investment and playing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Arena is going to get closer. I don't know if it's really going to get released in 2018 or not, but with the optimistic view of the some Wizards employees, it certainly might. So there's going to be a whole lot of stuff going on, and so just hang in there, have fun, and you know what? Instead of getting scared, get greedy, but be smart about how you get greedy. So when you see people getting nervous, maybe there's great opportunity there. I mean, if MTGO does crash and burn but doesn't shut down, I mean, hell, picking up like a boatload of super cheap stuff that you can still play and get value out of, having fun. I mean, hey, that wouldn't necessarily be bad for everybody. It'd be bad for everybody that's holding money in a collection. But just think about those opportunities. Think about the upside on anything bad that might happen, and stay optimistic. Maybe Wizards will start to turn things around, and maybe Arena will be a well-produced product that will actually be the turning point where Wizards starts to actually do a good job with their online products, and maybe they'll find a better production and card balance in the next master set that will make everybody happy. I don't know, but anyway, you guys take care, be safe, have a good one, peace.